Welcome back to Selena's Table, another Aussie Homestead, my channel. My name is Selena if you're new, and I love to cook. I know I'm one of those crazy people who looks forward to it, but at this time of the year, I get burnt out, okay? Like, I am cooking for a lot of people, for a lot of different things going on, and sometimes, well, frankly, most nights I'm just too tired to cook, but I still do. So this year, in the lead up to Christmas, I decided to do myself a favour, set aside some time today and get some meals pre-made, or at least partly pre-made. So I'm going to make 2 lasagnas, and one of those will be dinner tonight. Whenever I do any kind of meal prep or bulk cooking or anything like that, I always do dinner for that night. If you want to give this sort of cooking a go where you pre-make a few things, do yourself a favour and make sure one of those things is what you'll have for dinner that night, because I can guarantee you by the time dinner time rolls around tonight, the last thing I'm going to want to do is cook. So lasagna will be for dinner tonight, and all we will have to do is pop that in the oven, and I may even get someone else to serve that up because I have been cooking all morning already. The other thing I'm going to do is a Mexican pulled beef. So we'll use that for things like nachos, tacos, you know, we might put it on a Mexican style pizza, something like that, even burritos. I'm also going to make the chicken burrito filling, but I'm not going to cook that one. I'm going to have it like marinating, and it'll be the sort of dish that we just throw on the barbecue because we feel like chicken burritos, okay? And then we'll make other sides and things like that at the time when we're going to have that one. And one other dish I'm going to make today is a pasta bake that will end up being completely frozen. It will be fully cooked. It will be frozen, or not fully cooked. It won't be baked, the final bake. So the final bake will happen the day that we want to eat that one. We'll take it out of the freezer in the morning, and by evening, pop that into the oven and it will be ready within sort of 20 minutes. So I have got some things going already, and that is the pot of water over here that I'm going to cook the pasta in for my pasta bake. I'm going to move through these recipes relatively quickly today, and when it comes to my lasagna, I have got a dedicated video to how I make lasagna and how I make garlic bread, I think, accompanying that. So if you want sort of more details on how to make lasagna, feel free to watch that video. It goes through the recipe a little more thoroughly than I probably will today. So the first thing I'm going to get started is my pulled beef, and it's a Mexican style, and I'm going to do that in the Instant Pot. If you don't have an Instant Pot and you still want to make this recipe, by all means you can do this in a slow cooker. It's just going to take a few hours, like a day, to cook. All right, the first thing in my Instant Pot here is we want to get some rump. So I've got here, it is a rump cap. So when I buy my meat mostly in bulk, and I break it down myself most of the time. I haven't done a video on that, but I have one planned for next year to show you how I do that. But one of the cuts I get out of my rump when I do buy in bulk is the rump cap. Now this is also called, I think it's picanha, and it is a beautiful piece of meat that you can do on the barbecue and things like that as like a roast. Today I'm just going to turn it into pulled beef. So I don't always leave the fat on when I am breaking down my meat. I did in this case, and it's still partly frozen, but as you can see there's quite a thick layer of fat on there. So I'm going to try and just trim some of that off because I don't want quite that much fat. So that's why I'm cutting it into pieces, one so that it'll fit in my Instant Pot a little better, and also just because I want to just cut some of that fat off. And this is not a butcher's knife. It's not the sort of knife I would use when I'm working with my meat, but it's the knife I'm using right now. So just cut it into pieces and straight into your pot. If you don't have a large piece of meat, you can use like cubed steak. You can also use steaks in themselves and just cut them into pieces. All right, the whole idea is to make these a little smaller so that this meat cooks a little more evenly and a little quicker. So I've just washed my knife, that's ready now to go. To my beef, I want to add some spices, and I've got some of my homemade taco seasoning here. So I'm just going to put about a tablespoon of that in to my pot as well. My taco seasoning has got salt and pepper in it already. If you needed to add some salt and pepper, now would be the time. So that is in there. All I need to do now is add some tomatoes and add some water. Here is a can of tomatoes that we grew in our garden. And I'm just going to add that whole can. And then I'll just fill this up with water, give it a good rinse, and put that in as well. And that is it as far as all the ingredients I need to have for this pulled beef. So I'm going to put this beef into my Instant Pot, and it's going to take about 45 minutes, maybe even an hour, on a pressure cooking setting. If you want to slow cook this, do it for about 6 hours, all right? But I find doing it in the pressure cooker, it speeds up the whole process. I want this meat to be completely cooked, cooled down, and in my freezer before I'm finished doing everything else I need to do this afternoon for my freezer meals. So my Instant Pot, I'm just putting the lid on, hit pressure cook, and I want that to be at least 45 minutes. I'll check it at the 45-minute mark. And that is on normal and high pressure. My water is boiling, and I was just getting my bits and pieces out ready, but I'm going to pop this whole bag, so that's 500 grams of pasta, straight in the water, and I'll just keep an eye on it to make sure it's not overcooked but cooked perfectly al dente. So for my burrito chicken, it's a chipotle, lime and mango marinade, okay? And I have never been able to find chipotle seasoning in Australia. If you know where we can get just chipotle seasoning, please let me know. Also, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll know that I've been growing different varieties of chilies over the years, more so in the past than this year just gone. And I have some of those drying. I have a feeling one of those may be a chipotle chili, but I'm not sure. If you have all the information on chipotle chili, please do me a favor and my fellow Aussies a favor and give us the lowdown on chipotle. What I did find in the supermarket was this brand of chipotle taco seasoning. I have had a look at the ingredients. There are no fillers in it, okay? The ingredients are garlic and onion, paprika, cumin, chipotle, salt, sumac, pepper, marjoram, and then some lime leaves. So what I've been doing is using this, even though it has these other ingredients in it, mixing it with some of my other things and calling that my chipotle seasoning for my chicken. So what I'm going to do is add this whole recipe base, which is about 2 tablespoons, or probably 2 tablespoons of the actual chipotle in there. To that, I like to add smoked paprika. So I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of every other ingredient as well. Some coriander and some cumin. So that's 2 tablespoons of my other ingredients, 1 little packet, which is 30 grams of that Chipotle taco seasoning blend. Give that a mix, throw a little bit of salt and pepper in it, and then I call that basically my Chipotle seasoning. Until I can get my hands on the real deal, that's as good as it's going to get for me here. So a little bit of salt and pepper, because that seasoning blend did have salt and pepper in it as well. And just like a teaspoon of salt. Okay, set that aside. I've got these little guys here with me today to hold my freezer bags. I'm not cooking my chicken burrito mix or chicken component for my burritos today. That is going into the freezer raw, and we will cook it either on the barbecue or bake it in the oven, just like on a baking tray. Depending on the day, it doesn't take long once it's thawed to cook, and it'll probably take, 15-20 minutes. In that time, I will also have to prepare other things for the burritos, so it's not really a big deal. In each of my little packets, I'm going to do 3 chicken breasts. For 3 chicken breasts, I'm going to add 2 heaped spoons of my Chipotle mixture. All right, this I set aside for another day. I want to add a lime zest and juice to each one of these bags. And these are limes that I picked this week. I need to go up there and pick some more. It is the last of what I've got in the house. And we want the juice of these as well. I also add a little bit of garlic, fresh garlic, or jarred garlic, whatever you have available. So I am going to add 2 cloves of garlic to each of these bags. And I do have a link for these bags in my Amazon storefront in the description box if you're chasing Ziploc bag holders, okay? I have found that they are incredibly useful. I haven't had them for, this is the first year I've had them, and they really are great. Great, great, great. Okay. The next ingredient I like to add for my chicken burritos is mango. I know that that is probably completely not Mexican in any way, but yeah, I live in subtropical Queensland and we love mango. We always have mango, so, well, we have mango through summer. I should say we don't always have mango. We have mango through summer, and that's when we like to eat these burritos. So what I'm doing is in my food processor here, I am just taking the flesh because I want to puree this. And I would want to use 2 mangoes, so 1 mango per packet. Pop all that into the compost. Blitz this until we have a nice mango puree. So there's my mango sauce ready to be poured into these bags. And just eyeball it. You want about half in each. want to add about a tablespoon of olive oil as well to these packets, but my pasta is done, so I'm going to turn that off, give it a drain and a rinse, and just set that aside ready for that one's dish. So my pasta's draining. I'm just going to add about a tablespoon or two of olive oil to my burrito chicken, or chicken burritos, I guess I should say. Right. To that, we are just going to add some chicken. And I am simply going to add the whole breast. And that is give it a good mix. That is my mango lime burrito chicken. Mango lime chicken burritos ready for the freezer. That's going to make dinner so much easier for me, at least 2 nights, and probably lunches the following day because there's quite a bit of chicken there. And with our burritos, we always add rice and things like that, which really bulk them out. So I'm going to use some of that chicken in my pumpkin pasta bake, but I don't need all of it. So I've got one breast here. I pop it in a zip bag, I pop that in the freezer, and then that's available for me for another day. I was harvesting all of my onions the other day out in the rain, and because I harvested in the rain and I had left them in the ground for longer than I would have liked just because life got in my way, I ended up dicing up all of my onions and freezing them. So I've put them into little bags and then into another bag, so they're like double bagged. I can still smell them in the freezer though, so even triple bagging wouldn't be a bad idea. Having my onions pre-frozen, pre-diced is saving me a lot of time, and I'm so thankful that I did it. So today I'm going to use some of these frozen onions. We're going to get started on the meat sauce for our lasagna and the chicken sauce, or the pumpkin sauce, for our pasta bake. So I've got 2 pots ready to go, and I'm going to just split my onions in half, or almost half. I'll give my bolognese sauce a little bit more. Now there is a water component in these because of the frozen nature of them, and that's okay. It's just going to cook a little bit longer before that evaporates. I want to add some garlic to both of these as well, and they both want, well, I want to put 2 into the chicken, and I'll put what's left into the meat sauce. And I have washed my knife. We are good to go there. No chicken juices on there from when I cut a piece of chicken. If you're using jarred garlic, just do about 2 teaspoons for the pasta bake and about 3 or 4 in the meat sauce. Sometimes when I buy jarred garlic, I don't buy it anymore, but I used to buy it, I found that sometimes some brands were a lot stronger than others. So when it comes to garlic, you can add more or less based on your preference. I want 4 rashers of bacon. Roughly, depending on how big they are. Just take the rind off. If you have rind on bacon. And pop that into the chicken, pumpkin chicken pasta bake dish. Let's get some olive oil into this and get it started. So just add some olive oil and let that to start cooking while we chop up our chicken. So normally I would chop all the vegetables at once for both the dishes, the meat sauce and the chicken, but I need to go outside for a bit and harvest some herbs to go in that meat sauce. So I'm just going to get the chicken, the pumpkin chicken pasta bake dish going. So I've just diced up the 2 little tenderloins that were attached. And I'm just going to dice up this chicken. So that's ready to go. Our chicken is ready to go into the pot once our bacon and onions have started sauteing. I'll add my chicken and let that brown. I have run out into the garden. I've grabbed a couple of things, mainly just some herbs and one beautiful capsicum. That'd have to be one of the biggest ones I've ever grown. While I was out there, I saw I get distracted, you know me by now. I get outside and I'm out there for one thing and I seem to just do off with the fairies and find all the fun, pretty things. So I'm out there, and do you remember when I planted those zinnias that we grew the seed for? Anyway, long story short, some of them have popped up. They are beautiful. There are colours out there I didn't know could be zinnia colours. I have to take you out there. There's a storm rolling in, so I would take you right now, but I may have to either at the end of this video or do a little short or something soon to show you what colours we are getting out of our zinnias that we grew the seed for, and we didn't intend on any of these cross-pollinations happening. So I have no idea what colours have made, or what variety of my zinnias have made some of these specific colours, but I love them. They're so pretty. They're such a blessing to have a garden, even if, like our summer, it's not growing a ton of our food right now other than herbs and things, but the flowers, they just make me so happy. My bacon, onions and garlic are sauteing beautifully. So now I'm going to add my chicken. Okay, so I had to share that with you. I know it's got nothing to do with what I'm doing today with these freezer meals, but yeah, you just needed to know that there are some absolutely gorgeous colours coming out of our garden, and I will show you them in a moment. But here we go. We're browning off our chicken. This smells beautiful. while our chicken is cooking in the background, I am going to get started on the rest of this meat sauce components. So I've got some carrots here. I'm just going to peel and chop those up real quick. I grabbed some spinach while I was outside, so I will put that in with the chicken. So this is probably 3 carrots worth of actual carrot. Mine are small, like most things I grow. We still absolutely love growing our own food, even if, you know, we don't get the same sizes that we could purchase. We think we make up for it in flavour. And freshness, definitely freshness. Whenever I have had to buy carrots especially, I really do notice the difference in, one, how long they'll last in my fridge, but also the crisp factor. They just don't last as long, they do not taste as sweet, yet they're just nowhere near what we can produce ourselves. And carrots, they are so fun to pull, so easy to make, to grow. And this year, as you know, if you've been following for a while, we even are growing our own carrot seed. So I'm really excited for next, probably autumn, I'll sow those seeds. I'm assuming they'll be good and ready by then for me to sow. I'm using my mini knife because my other knives are dirty now. I would be adding celery to this if my celery outside had have looked even half edible. Right now it just looks very sad. I think it's just too old. It's very hot here, so it's just not really loving life out there. It's getting plenty and plenty of rain. This capsicum looks fantastic. I am just going to give that pumpkin or that chicken a stir. And I have a handful of beans that I picked yesterday. So, and yes, I am still getting beans. So if you were with me when I took you on a little mini tour of the garden recently, and I told you about how we had the snake in the carrot patch, and I flipped out, because that's what I do when there's a snake. Anyway. And I ended up ripping half my bean bushes out in the process of trying to run away. The ones I replanted, they haven't come back, although I have put new seed in the ground, so I'm not worried, we'll have more beans in no time. But the 2 bushes that didn't end up getting torn out are producing, and they are producing just enough. So not enough to like be wanting beans all the time, but enough, you know, to get that much for a day, which is perfect for this meat sauce. And no, this is not a traditional bolognese. This is something I am just going to pump whatever veggies I have into it, whatever Italian herbs I have, and some meat, because this is just to fill the void at this point. So this is ready to join its friend over on the stove. I'll pop a tablespoon or two of olive oil in here and let that to start sauteing as well. So I've put the vegetable component of that meat sauce on the heat. It is starting to cook. I have washed my spinach and I'm just going to shred that to add to the chicken dish. So the heat is on for the meat sauce. The chicken is no longer on a heat sauce because it is done up until the point where I need to add some other things that I'm not quite ready for. So I'm adding my spinach now. That will just wilt from the residual heat that is in the pan. And I need to go find something from my pantry. So back in August, I canned some pumpkin. So we had a great crop of pumpkin through our winter, and yeah, I didn't know what to do with it, and I thought I want to try canning pumpkin. I have canned potatoes and I've canned sweet potato before, and I find they're really helpful to have in a can for like frying in some butter or something to add to a dish like a side. But the pumpkin I didn't really have plans for, and when I have opened these cans, I do find that the pumpkin is really soft. So it's more like probably mashed pumpkin or pumpkin puree. If you don't have canned pumpkin, what you'll need to make this particular recipe is just some pumpkin that you have steamed or roasted and pureed or mashed so that it's nice and soft. It's going to form part of the sauce for our chicken, and it's simply just some mashed pumpkin. So I've got 2 jars here, which is about 2 cups of pumpkin by the time I've strained it. I'm going to strain the liquid off and just add the pumpkin itself to my chicken. So that's the pumpkin there strained, and it was simply canned in water. There was no salt or anything else in there. And because it's pre-cooked, just doing this is going to mash it. So if you had mashed pumpkin, that would also work. That timer is our Instant Pot. So our Instant Pot is still going off. All right, our Instant Pot has just gone off. I'm going to let that natural release for about 10 more minutes before I push the quick release button to test if that meat is done. Meanwhile, I'm just going to keep cooking down the vegetables for the meat sauce, and then I'll get started on the next component for the lasagna. So in the large pot here, I've just got some butter melting. I'm going to make the cheese sauce that's going to go into my lasagna, and also there's cheese sauce in this pumpkin chicken dish. So that is, you know, why I'm doing these three dishes all at once, is because they use similar ingredients. My vegetables are cooking down nicely for my meat sauce. I'm going to add my mince now, and I've got 1 kilo of beef mince that I'm going to add to that right now. So I've got my beef mince in here. I'm mixing it around, letting that do its thing, cook with the veggies. My butter is melting. It's almost fully melted. So my butter's fully melted. I'm just going to add some plain flour, and I am going to add about 3 litres of milk. So this is going to be a large batch of the bechamel cheese sauce. So I've added 1.5 cups of plain flour. Give that a good whisk, getting off any that is stuck to the base of your pot. Cook that butter off for a minute before you go and add your milk to it. I am using the trusty UHT milk for this. It's another reason to have UHT milk, because, you know, it makes life very simple when you need to whip up something like this and you don't have to use all your fresh milk. I'm whisking constantly to get rid of any lumps of the roux. The roux is that butter flour mixture. I do leave my white sauce on the heat when I'm cooking it. I don't turn it off until I've gotten the thickness that I'm looking for. I just remember that I need to keep stirring it and don't walk away and let it boil away, because you'll end up with a burnt base. This meat is cooking up nicely. It's not browning yet, but it is lovely and cooked. So we are ready to go ahead and add some flavour to that. So what I've got is all those herbs that I collected. So the herbs I've brought in, I've got some basil, some parsley, chives, and oregano. And I am just going to chop all of this together and add all of it to my meat sauce, all right? I will also add some dried herbs, dried Italian herb mix, because I like the flavour of the dried herbs as well. We do use a lot of herbs in this house, so I am heavy-handed when it comes to herbs. If you're not a fan of using herbs, or at least this many, you don't have to either. And again, I'm using my mini knife, so it's a bit small, but there we go, some rough chopped herbs ready to go straight into our meat sauce. I've put my herbs in. Don't forget about the bechamel that's over here, trying not to burn itself to the base of the pot. Okay, to this I'm also just going to add some salt and pepper, and I'm going to add 2 jars of passata. So this is just bought passata. I'm going to add 2 jars, plus probably half a jar worth of water, just to rinse them out and not lose any of that tomato goodness. And I'm going to turn this meat sauce right down to a low simmer, because now I just want the flavours to infuse into each other. I've hit the quick release button on the beef, and I've allowed the steam to come out before opening the lid, and I'm just checking it now to see if it's soft, and as you can see, it just falls apart. Okay, there's no effort at all. That is perfect. The only thing left to do for that pulled beef is to let it cool down and then bag it up. So I've got a couple of options. I can just take it out of the pressure cooker, put it under the fan, and hope that it cools down quickly. I may take all of that meat out and just put it in a bowl, and overnight I'll probably set it in my fridge, and then tomorrow I can bag it up. When I bag it up, I'll just put it into a Ziploc bag, a larger one than these, purely because I don't have containers that really work in the freezer when it comes to like Tupperware containers and things like that. I don't have silicone bags or anything like that. I really only have the freezer bags. I also like that the freezer bags, they will freeze flat. If I put the product in them, lay them flat in the freezer, they do freeze flat, and it does allow me to fit more things in than if they were in a bulky container. So the meat is done. That is one thing done. Our chicken burritos, they're done because the marinade is done, and the chicken pumpkin pasta bake. That one is almost done. We're just waiting on that cheese sauce to finish thickening, and the bolognese is done as well. So once we've assembled these things, we will be able to put our feet up and have a rest. My white sauce is looking good. I'm ready to add some cheese. So I've got some grated cheese here. I've grated about 700 grams of cheese, and that will also include, I hope, what I need to put on the top of these dishes. So I'm going to add most of this to my sauce, and you can see my sauce is quite thick, but it's still hot, so it will melt the cheese nicely. I haven't added any other seasonings to this. I haven't put salt and pepper or onion powder or anything like that in it. Here we go. So probably half of it is going straight into my cheese sauce. Once that's melted through, I will taste it. I am ready to start getting all of this assembled. I've got my olive oil. I only bought 2 boxes of lasagna sheets, so I'm not even sure if I've got enough sheets to make 2 lasagnas. If I don't, what I'll do is just grab a bag of pasta, raw, just like these are, and make like lasagna but with pasta. So like a pasta bake style dish, a baked pasta. But I have got 3 different kinds of pans. One is an alfoil tray, 2 glass dishes, but they're all completely different sizes. And I'm just going to spray all of them with some olive oil. Sides and base. So the pumpkin dish I'm going to do in this larger one, and this is the noodles we cooked earlier, and they have just started to stick together a little bit, but that's all right. We can break them up. I have my cheese sauce here next to me as well. And what we might do is just get this one complete and ready to go before we move on to building the lasagna, since they are the same. I just want to break these up so they're not stuck together. I did rinse them, maybe not quite enough. To our pasta bake, our pumpkin pasta sauce, I want to add a couple ladlefuls of our cheese sauce. So I'm going to add just a couple big ladlefuls. I might do 3 or 4. I might do 4. There we go, 4 of those. Give that a stir. We want this to be saucy because it is going over that pasta. If you feel like you need to add another spoonful or ladleful of the pumpkin sauce, of the cheese sauce, beg your pardon, you can do that as well. I feel like we might add just a little bit more, just an almost full scoop, and that will be perfect because this needs to be saucy so that the pasta doesn't dry out. And then it's really simple, just mix the 2 together. And then give that a stir, get the pasta coated in the sauce. Smooth out the top. We're going to sprinkle some cheese over that. So just a little bit of cheese on top. And then just some breadcrumbs on top of that. So here I have some of our homemade breadcrumbs. Sprinkle them on top. This is going to make a really yummy crunchy topping. And that is another dish done. We're going to let that cool. Once that cools down enough, I will wrap that with some baking paper, alfoil, and then Glad wrap. So in that order, baking paper on top of the cheese, alfoil over the whole pan, and then Glad wrap tightly double wrapped around that. And I've never had a problem with freezer burn when I wrap things in that way. So that one will be ready to go into the freezer. Now for our 2 lasagnas, I'm going to make them, hopefully both lasagna. I might make one and see if I run out of the noodles, in which case we'll do the other one, the pasta bake. So I have everything set up, ready to go. I've got my meat sauce, and it's really quite liquidy, which is good, because if we have to cook pasta in its own liquid, you don't want the sauce to be too dry. So having a really saucy meat sauce is good for lasagna or a pasta bake. And then I have my cheese sauce over here. So what I'm going to do first is just put some of my meat sauce in this pan here. Because we love cheese sauce around here, I am going to give it a drizzle of the cheese sauce. And I make my lasagna different sort of every time I make it. These sheets might go lengthways together. There we go. More meat sauce. I haven't made lasagna using this particular brand of lasagna shell. I was looking for Italian pasta, and I have not even made my own lasagna noodles that I've frozen, so I'm not sure how they freeze when it comes to baking the lasagna. I freeze my fettuccine and things like that all the time that I make, but not, yeah, I haven't done that with lasagna sheets, so I'm not sure. Nice thick cheese sauce over the top, and I am making a mess. Pop some cheese on top of that one. I'm going to set that aside and just build the next one. In the exact same way, I do have plenty of lasagna sheets, so this will also be a lasagna. I've made a heck of a mess. I know that I have a job ahead of me. Look at the puddle there, or don't, let's just pretend it's not there. I ended up getting this entire lasagna built with all of those lasagna noodles too, so I didn't need to break out any pasta. I had the perfect amount for 2 lasagnas of sort of this size. I guess they were equal. I do have a tiny bit of the meat sauce left, and I'll just put that into a container. Someone will take that for work this week, or for lunch I should say, and you know, it's already gone essentially. So I will clean up this mess. There's a mess, trust me, it's pretty bad. I'm usually much cleaner and better at cleaning as you go than I have done today. I am going to allow these to cool before I wrap them. We'll have one of the lasagnas for dinner. But yeah, productive day. We've gotten plenty of dinners done. This is going to save my family, me particularly, a huge amount of work in the coming weeks as we lead up to Christmas, and we're busy. We're just really busy this time of year. There's so many things to do, fun things to do, family things to do. So this is going to help get us through the exhaustion of cooking dinner. But of course, this is something we can do all year long. And we do this all year long, on and off. I don't always have a freezer stocked with the frozen meals, but yeah, this year I am doing myself a favor by making my Christmas go a little bit easier at dinner time. And before I say goodbye, I will show you. So what I do is once my meat has cooled down like enough to not splatter myself in the face, I just grab a fork. I have tipped about half the liquid out from my pulled beef, and I'm going to leave it sitting in the rest of this liquid. When I go to serve it, if I need to strain off a bit more liquid, that's fine, but I can't really add any back. So it's better to have too much, strain it off at the time of eating it, plus this moisture will keep my meat from drying out. And as you can see, I'm not putting in any effort at all. I'm just pushing on my beef and it is breaking apart. I'll just make sure it's fully submerged. And like I said, this will end up in a bag. It won't stay in the tray. The tray was just to help it cool down a bit quicker. Here we are, friends. This is what we got done. We've got our Mexican pulled beef ready to go in the freezer, 2 lasagnas, our pumpkin, bacon, chicken, pasta bake, and our 2 bags of the mango lime burrito chicken burrito, ready to go. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and that these freezer meals maybe inspire you to help yourself out in future days or weeks to come. I'm looking forward to having this tonight for dinner because I'm now done with my cooking for the day. I've got a mess to clean. That is going to be more than enough work for me, and then I'm putting my feet up. Have a fantastic week and I'll catch you next time. Bye.